Good morning. Hi, Lisa Cernka here. Hello, functional medicine family. So, thank you all for being here. And today's topic is going to expand on what we talked about last week, which was inflammatory score. And we're going to revisit, if you weren't here last week for a discussion about what is your inflammatory risk, what is your score, because as we know, as more information is coming out, we know that inflammation, whole body inflammation, um, really influences your immune response and your overall health. And when we talked last week, we went through the inflammatory score and we saw how it was very progressive in its damage that was done over time. So now we want to talk about, okay, I've got my inflammatory score. What do I do? How do I change this? Can it be reversed? And how quickly can it be reversed? And those are really all good questions. We'll talk about the tool today that we're going to talk about is food, because that's one of the most quickest, easiest ways to reduce your, in my opinion, your inflammatory overload or your influence on your body. So we'll get into it. Start right now. Okay, I wanted to just take a minute to pull up the inflammatory risk score. All of you had this email to you from the last visit that we had, but we're going to kind of take a look at this again and look at how many items are actually associated with food. There are a lot of other things that help us reduce our inflammatory risk score, which we will talk about in other classes, but today we want to really talk about food. 1, red meat, veggies. You're going to see that as a recurring theme. Alcohol. And I'm going to include bowel habits in there only because if we're not eating enough veggies or fiber, we're not going to the bathroom much. So then we go back down here again, avoiding vegetables. How many of us avoid certain vegetables? I do. So we'll talk about a workaround for that. I found some really great things that we can do. And hopefully when our nutrition coach comes on board in the next week or two, they can talk to us about it as well. Sugar intake. Sugar intake not only causes inflammation, but it also triggers that dopamine response in the brain. You've heard the saying that sugar is just as addictive as cocaine because of that response. Fast food. I know we all been trying to help the restaurant industry over the last year and a half. However, inflammatory processed foods and oils really elevate inflammation. And in some clinical studies, it has been documented that that inflammatory response can go on for up to 4 hours. Think about that for a second. Pretty wild. So then now we're really into, when we have 3 points for all these, we really are seeing the effects, the physical, biological health breakdown of inflammation. Okay, so that's bad news. All right, what's the good news? Well, the good news is that we can, I'm going to pull up my tools here. We're going to talk about food because in functional medicine, in naturopathic lifestyle medicine, food is medicine. Food is healing. Food can be harmful. We've all heard those kinds of things. And my goal, and I think I probably told this to all of you when we first meet or the first couple of times that we meet, my goal is for you to look at your plate and say, what on this plate is harming me and what on this plate is helping me. So having that knowledge and that awareness, and there is a certain amount of food is complicated. Anybody who has struggled with weight, whether or food abuse, because food can be abused, knows that it's a complicated thing. Think about how many celebrations you've had in your life where food is a huge part of it. Think about how many tragedies that have happened in families and in communities where food is a part of it. So it's a complicated subject, and I don't want to make it sound like, well, if you just stop eating this, you'll be fine. That's not the case. As you know, working with me, everything is all interconnected. Think of that puzzle piece, everything coming to connect it, right? So I love this PDF that's from the Institute of Functional Medicine. Of course, everybody's going to get this in the follow-up group class. Is that, you know, this is functional nutrition, I guess is what it's called now, basically is understanding the quality, the quantity of the food is very beneficial, and it's a powerful, powerful influence, a powerful tool. So how do we use it? And it certainly can reverse disease. We can reverse type 2 diabetes. We can reverse insulin resistance. Some cases we can reverse cardiovascular disease. I mean, all of these things have been clinically proven. So when we look at food and how it affects our health, probably in my opinion, the two biggest offenders, some people may say three: toxins, you know, all of the chemicals that are used, genetic modified elements that genetically alter our food. And then, so that creates that toxic burden. Then we look at sugar. You've seen the studies, sugar, I mean, Americans eat more sugar than anybody. When we have seen isolated communities throughout the world, and we look at their health, when we first interact, when Western culture, when modernized culture comes to kind of impart their wisdom on communities throughout the world that have been isolated, and we introduce things like sugar, their health significantly goes down, significantly goes down. So we see that. So sugar's a problem, toxins are a problem. Now, processed foods. We live in a world of, we need convenience. We want convenience. We demand convenience. And it's much easier for a lot of families to just hit the drive-through, grab the pre-made meal at the store, grab the box, grab the bag. I always laugh when I see the commercial of the mother running around, because this was me, running around chasing their child with like, one more bite, just one more bite. And then you plop macaroni and cheese in front of them and they eat it up, right? And we think we're doing a good job as parents. And, you know, at least we're getting some food in them, right? Yeah, I've had that discussion. I think I even have a video of my son crying hysterically because I made him eat a piece of broccoli. He wouldn't be happy with me. But food is actually information. It tells our bodies, it tells our immune system how to react. It tells us what we should be doing, and how we should be processing everything that we have. But this is probably the most important thing here, is that really food is emotional. Food is connection, like I had talked about earlier. So there is a process that you must go through in order to change your mindset, change your awareness, change the way you eat, change how your body feels. So don't feel like you're a failure because someone else has been able to just transform their diet like crazy and you're struggling a little bit. That's okay. That's why a functional medicine practitioner and a nutritional health coach is so important. So basically the concepts are this: eat fresh, eat the rainbow, and make sure you have fiber, right? Real food, real food. we want mostly a plant-based diet. I don't know if some of you have heard of the China study. Let me see. So one of the things I wanted to bring here to show you is the China study. This is the small abridged version. This is a huge, it's about using a whole food plant-based diet. And if you don't know the history behind the China study, there's a big book that goes with it as well. But there were some scientists, biologists, nutritional scientists that found 2 villages in China, I believe it was in the 80s, 90s. And one had a plant-based only available to them, and the other one had only animal protein available to them. Very little fruits and vegetables. And the other one had very little animal protein. What a great real world experiment to decide what was healthier, right? And if there's a YouTube, I think there's a video or a movie that you can watch that kind of talks about it. Look it up. It's pretty interesting. So the China study says plant-based, low calorie. We know that. Reduced calorie. Don't overeat, right? Only eat what you need. Now, there's also, I'll be talking about intermittent fasting in the next couple of weeks, talking about how intermittent fasting really helps. The benefits of intermittent fasting and who should fast, who shouldn't. Okay, another thing that I'll show you. Dr. Terry Wall. If you've not seen Dr. Terry Wall, if you've not seen any of her videos or her interviews with Dr. Mark Hyman, go into YouTube, just check it out. The first time I heard her speak, my mouth was agape. She has reversed her own MS. She has went from a wheelchair to walking. She documents all of her clinical diet information. Green leafies, big deal. Like heavy big deal. So pay attention to food. I mean, it's really important. So the what food plan, you know, out of the Institute of Functional Medicine, really the one food plan that is probably the most anti-inflammatory is the elimination diet. So most of you, I have asked you to do a mini elimination diet, and it's the top 6 to 8 foods that are known to be the most inflammatory response causing symptoms. But a full-on elimination diet is pretty comprehensive, and it takes about 30 days. It is a gold standard for finding out what food triggers affect you and to see how inflammation is affected by food. It should be guided. You need preparation to do it. And it should be guided because there is a very specific way to reintroduce foods once you've completed the elimination diet. It's not a calorie reduction. It's not a weight loss diet. And I know a lot of people like to use it as such. Some people like to use it as a detox diet, which detox is different than elimination, but it can detox a little bit. So where do you start with inflammation in food? Well, you start with the elimination diet. That's where you start. And you should do it in a very systematic manner. Understanding why you're doing it. What are the histamine influence, the oxalate influences, all of those things, sugar influences, really need to be investigated. And that's why having a nutritional coach, a functional medicine practitioner to guide you through it is really important. So once we get through the elimination diet, like what's the diet next? You know, everybody asks me, you know, well, what plan should I be on? Well, if we go back to that original form, you know, you really should be on, when they say whole food, they mean not processed food, natural food in its natural state, right? That doesn't mean you can't cook it. That doesn't mean you can't put it in a recipe. It's just that what are the other things that you're putting in the recipe? But what we know with the cardiometabolic food plan, which is the big umbrella, which we can talk about the Mito Keto plan, which is kind of a keto form of it. We can talk about the Mediterranean food plan, which is another form of this particular big umbrella of cardiometabolic. So we will look at, as we start to see what your needs are, which is really the most helpful. What I love about, and this comes with a booklet, the cardiometabolic food plan comes with a booklet, talks about intermittent fasting, it talks about Mito Keto, it talks about the Mediterranean diet, and you and I will figure out which one is the best for you. But I love these little cheat sheets because I print these up and put them on my refrigerator, and we fill out how many servings per day that you can have based on calories, based on, you know, BMI and all that. And then this is really a really quick way, right? What are we looking for in proteins? We give you a little definition. The foods that we want you to really steer towards, the therapeutic foods, are the ones in deep blue. How easy is that, right? So we will look at that. We'll go, okay, because this is really the omega-3s and omega-6s. Omega-3s are really very helpful. And we'll talk about fats in a minute. So yeah, this is a super, very interesting sheet that is available, and I give to my clients as we move into which food plan is for them. Now it also comes with a recipe book. So once you know what your food plan is, Mito Keto, you know, thank you, Google, Dr. Google, type that in, go onto Instagram. There's a million people that you can follow that do this plan and that plan. And hey, just know they all come from, in some part, from the cardiometabolic food plan, that core food plan. And then they kind of take their own little spin off of there. Pretty cool. So then let's talk about, when we talk about food, we talk about reducing toxins, right? So there is the Dirty Dozen of foods that have the highest toxic burden, which would be apples, strawberries, I believe, beef, poultry. There's a couple others, and I will include that resource list at the end of the class. So there's a lot that we can do. You know, the other things that we talk about with lifestyle and being an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, sleep is critical. That's probably the next step that I would have someone, besides food, is look at their sleep. Sleep is where we repair, where we detoxify. Sleep is very, very important. And the next modifiable lifestyle process that I would have you work on would be sleep. Then from sleep, we would talk about stress and mindfulness. The stress, again, we've had this discussion about what stress is. It's a big word. I'm talking about emotional lifestyle stress right now. And, you know, creating quiet downtime, de-stressing time, even if it's 3 minutes a day, even if you can work up from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, it's that mindset of being aware that stress has something to do with your inflammatory score. Now, without getting too deep into it, stress does affect your secretory IgA in your gut and can lead to leaky gut. And that'll be another discussion that we'll talk about when we talk about intestinal permeability or leaky gut. So as you can see, all these pieces are starting to come together. They really are interconnected and interwoven. So it's not just one pill, one thing, one diet, that's going to be it. And it makes me a little sad when people advertise that, right? They're saying that this is the one key that you need in order to lose up 10 pounds, be successful, get better at work, have a better relationship. And I really wish it was that easy. But it takes perseverance. It takes guidance. It takes community. That's why we're here in a shared group visit, right? So that we can learn from each other. And how do we take from other people's successes? How do we learn from other people's failures? And I hate to say failures, but vulnerabilities, really. Like, what are you struggling with? Challenges, not really failures. I apologize for saying that word. So that's the end of this talk. We're going to actually move into the closed group. Recording is going to stop, and we're going to really talk about food, things that we need to change, identify, talking about the elimination diet, and what to do when you do identify something like that. Okay, thanks.